So you're the proud new owner of an Eride Pro SS. These are the things we think you should do right off the bat. This is the first of many videos that we're going to take you through all the mods that we're going to do through our bike. We're going to start pretty mild, some things that can really move the needle in the very beginning on a budget, all the way through the wild, the types of things that we do to all of our other Sur-Ron Light Bees, Tillarius Stings, etc. We're going to do to this bike as well. But to get us started, we're going to focus on some essential upgrades that you should do on day one that are friendly on the wallet but make a big difference when you're riding the bike. I'm going to lead you through 4 main categories that we do every bike that we touch. I'm going to start with removing the sensors on the bike. They're there for a reason. They're great. They happen to bother me when I'm riding. My hands are always on the brake levers and the bike is cutting out. So we're going to remove the sensors and show you how to do that. Next thing we're going to go through is the cockpit upgrades that we would do. I'm a taller rider. I need taller bars. There's a couple things that are going to make the bike feel better under my hands and feet. We'll take you through those. The third is going to be chassis performance. Now this is just a general safety check of all nuts and bolts. We're going to grease things as we're installing new parts. And it's just a good sanity check to make sure that everything is properly tensioned as you start to abuse this bike when you're riding it really hard. And then the fourth is going to be tire selection as we go through upgrading our tires and maybe later upgrading our wheels as well. Okay, so let's talk about why the safety sensors exist. They're there for a good reason. If you go to grab a handful of throttle when you're not ready, maybe you're just walking by the bike and you just want to spin the throttle, the bike's going to take off. If you're on the bike, you just grab the brakes, it cuts the power. It's a great safety mechanism. The tilt sensor is built into the bike so that if you're in a crash, the bike gets laid on its side, the throttle's held wide open and the wheel's just spinning right beside you. You don't want to get caught up in the drivetrain. That's terrible. It will cut the power from the bike in the event of a crash. The third is the kickstand sensor. Now, because we're going to be riding this bike pretty hard, we're going to be jumping it a lot, the landing force coming off of a jump can cause the kickstand to flicker down just a little bit, and that will actually cut power from the bike. That's the last thing I want to happen when I'm riding really aggressively. But to do this video justice, now Brett is going to be riding a little bit harder on this bike than I am, so let me do a quick introduction. Brett, you've ridden this bike more than I have so far. You've experienced it, but that's not really any different than any of the other bikes we have. We always remove the safety sensors.
No, absolutely. Bikes. Every single one of these bikes all come with the same sensors. The brake sensors, the tilt sensor, and that kickstand sensor. It's one of the first things I do to any of these bikes is just remove them. Now, it is great if you're learning, like you mentioned, but the further you progress along the skill path, essentially, the more of a hindrance they can be. For me, when it comes to the brake sensors, I am constantly like in ruts, on the brakes, controlling the bike with the throttle and the brake simultaneously. If I cut throttle control while on the brakes, it makes it very difficult to be able to control the bike in situations like that. The tilt sensor, I love throwing these bikes sideways. I even love throwing them upside down. The bike cuts power on me in situations like that. It can actually harm me pretty bad. So oftentimes, like the situations where you want the power to be there the most, the sensors could get rid of it. So I suggest removing them. But once again, if you're a beginner, you're learning, it's great to have safety mechanisms to back that until you kind of feel comfortable enough on the bike that you understand exactly what it's going to do underneath you.
So quick disclaimer, again, they exist for a reason. We're not saying you should remove them in all circumstances. It's just because of the kind of riding that we do, we are going to remove them. It's almost like riding a horse that has a mind of its own. That actually scares me a little bit. I would rather control the bike that I'm riding, so that's why we're going to remove them in this instance.
Couldn't agree more. Let's take you through how to do that.
Now remember, you're working on an electric bike, so the first thing you're going to do before you put a wrench on this bike is turn off the breaker. Go under the battery lid, go ahead and give it a flip, and I'm going to be removing the battery eventually, so I'm just going to go ahead and take it out now. Get rid of it. That way we have room to work on everything. And we're going to jump right in. We're going to start with the brake sensors first. What we're going to need out of our handy toolkit here, got to give a shout out to Boxo. real quick. They make the best setup. We absolutely love their tools. You can see how organized they are. I'm going to start with a 7mm wrench and a 2mm hex wrench to remove the sensor out of the brake itself. So we're going to be removing this little piece, but you can't just take a wrench and pull this out. You actually have to turn and remove this Allen bolt first. So you can just give that a couple of turns. Once that is loose, then we can come in with a 7mm wrench and we can go ahead and start to turn that out. I can already see that it's loose now that I've loosened the Allen, but I'll just go ahead and turn this out. Okay, so now that you've removed the sensor from the brake lever itself, you're going to trace the wire down, and you can see that it goes in here behind the key. So we're going to go ahead and remove this panel so that we can get in behind here, and then we're going to simply unplug it from the harness. Now we're simply going to repeat that for the left-hand brake as well. So to remove the tilt sensor, it's easier if we remove the skid plate. It's easier to remove the skid plate if the bike is off of the stand. On many other brands, the tilt sensor is actually behind the controller. On the Eride Pro, it's actually right here inside this bundle. So we can simply remove the skid plate and unplug it and remove it from this bell housing. Now that I'm already down here in all this dirt, I can go ahead and just follow the kickstand sensor and simply remove that as well. So it's a 12mm to remove this bolt. Now I've just loosened it, so I'm simply going to turn my sensor out. Now you can see that we've cut ours. When we were riding, we didn't have all of our tools with us, and so we just snipped it quickly. Because yours is still going to be attached, you're simply going to be able to feed it out, and you can see that there's a zip tie here that we're going to cut. So now that all the sensors are removed, we've taken out the tilt sensor, we've taken off the brake sensors, taken out the kickstand sensor. We can simply get rid of these. We're going to button the bike back up, get it back up on the stand. So we just got finished removing all the sensors. Now we're going to move into cockpit. I'm going to focus on the points of contact with the bike. That's your hands and your feet. A quick shout out to Eride Pro. They've already included about 2-inch rise bars. I'm a taller rider. I need them to be a little bit taller than that. And if you've ever crashed and your handlebars turn a little bit sideways, that's because this is equivalent of a mountain bike stem. I don't like that. I'm going to go with a direct mount. So let me show you what we're going to do. 3-inch rise bars. You can tell that we're going with a gold theme here. Direct mount stem. Foot pegs. And of course, new grips, because I'm partial. I love ODI grips. I love the way they feel. So let's go ahead and get these on the bike. So let me talk through a direct mount stem because we have a bit of a problem that we're going to have to overcome. We're going to the Warp 9 direct mount stem. The thing I like about this the most, it comes with a 20mm riser, so I can actually make the handlebars taller than normal. So Warp 9 transformer direct mount stem plus 3-inch riser bars fits a 6-foot tall rider. Now the problem that we have to overcome, come on over here, Brett. If you see the width of the light mount, that's where these bolts are going to go. They're going to directly mount into the top of the fork crown. That makes a more solid point, so there's no twisting handlebars. They're always going to be connected. When we remove this, it's going to be right in line with the display. So that means, for the time being, we're going to have to cut one side of this so that this can fit in, and that's going to be a bit offset. This problem will be solved soon enough. I think Warp 9 is working on a solution, so is Eride Pro, so that they can make that wider so that these fit naturally. Now, before we reinstall this, there's a problem that I want to discuss. You can see that we've got extra room here because we removed the OEM stem. Now, we have to take up this additional space because when this is not done properly, the headset can come loose. It can egg shape or ovalize the actual head tube itself, which will damage the frame. You don't want your front end to be loose at all. This is actually going to help us tighten down on the bearings themselves. To do that, I'm going to use spacers. You can get these from your local mountain bike store. We have them on our website. So I'm going to add enough spacers so that it is actually 2 to 3 millimeters higher than the actual head tube itself. That's because this mechanism is going to pull the fork up, it's going to pull the top down, and it's going to sandwich the headset properly. Then we're going to tension it perfectly so the handlebars aren't too loose.
All right, dude.
Whoa, wait a second, wait.
What?
What are you doing, man? Let's describe this real quick. Okay, so hopefully by the time you have your bike and you're ready to do this, you don't have to cut this thing off. Let's think about this for a second. This is a pretty expensive display. We don't want to break it. We are going to very easily and carefully cut off one side so that we can mount it on the side. I know, you've got your favorite tool there. I just want to make sure that we do it right.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Wait. Aren't you forgetting something?
Dude.
Safety first.
Grandpa.
Wait. I just want to say, man, you look great in those glasses.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Now you got it.
I appreciate that.
Nicely done. Just like new. Next up is foot pegs. The reason we're going to do this, we ride off-road quite a bit. Our feet bounce around. We wear moto boots. We want them to grip really well. The OEM pegs look great. I love that they're black, but they were made for tennis shoes. So let's go ahead and swap them out. Okay, so we just finished our pegs. Now it's time to move on to tires. The reason we're changing the tires is these are a little bit more like mountain bike tires. They're not as grippy as we want. We're riding off-road really aggressively, so we want some really good tread. If you're looking for upgraded 19-inch tires, we have a video where we break down our top 10. So for this build, we're using the Tusk GroundWire. It's a dedicated front and rear 19-inch tire. Whoa. Let's not go for the premium wheels yet. This is our budget build, so we're gonna stick with a sub $500 upgrade for our first time. All right, let's put these on. Well, that was easy. So you might be asking, why did we change 19-inch tires to 19-inch tires? Well, let's look at the rear. Look at the tread difference in between these two. You can see how on the OEM, it's kind of shallow, meant to roll fast, but that's not really ideal for off-road riding. We need these very large knobs that are designed for traction, and so that's exactly what we went for on this build. So we have removed our sensors, we've installed our cockpit upgrades, we even put on new tires. The last section is chassis performance. Now, if I'm happy with this build and I'm planning on riding the bike for the next year, let's say, there's a couple things I want to check before I go and put a ton of miles on the bike. That might be simple things like greasing any fitting that you maybe have moved, like the suspension linkage, if you're going to change that out. We grease our axles when we put the new tires back on our bike. And you may want to go through and check the torque specs of all bolts that you can find in your user's manual. We'll follow up with another video where we're going to talk about suspension setup, that head tube, tension, and potentially even like brake lever position. All of these things are a little bit more personal, but are great setup guide that we will follow up in another video. All right, guys, well, that concludes our budget build. We tried to maximize performance without really hurting your wallet. Stay tuned for our next video where we'll take it to the next level. And whoa, no, not yet. We'll save that for the next video. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Hit subscribe. Let us know what you would do differently if you only had a $500 budget.